One Texas-based organization is changing the story for folks with Parkinson's. The Parkinson Voice Project is helping people all over the world regain and retain their voices in a way that simply floored me.
Don't charge for the therapy services. We use a pay it forward system instead of billing, insurance, or charging.
When I heard that, I knew this conversation would be special. They're not just treating a disease, they're restoring hope. You don't have to have Parkinson's to be moved by this one.
So we all desire connection to the people we love, the stories we share, and the ability to express ourselves clearly and confidently. But what happens when your own voice begins to fade? For millions living with Parkinson's, that is not just a fear, but a reality. Today, we are talking with the incredible team from Parkinson Voice Project. They are a nonprofit helping people all over the world regain and retain their voices through specialized speech therapy and the power of intentional communication. I'm joined today by Elizabeth and David Lyons and Samantha Elandary, who are leading this mission with compassion, innovation, and heart. Whether Parkinson's has touched your family or not, this conversation is about something universal, the importance of being heard. So welcome today to my guests. I am so glad that you are here. And if you can, tell folks just a little bit about yourselves, your involvement with the project. And Samantha, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to David and then Elizabeth.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you for that nice introduction. We do want people with Parkinson's to be heard. I am the founder and chief executive officer of Parkinson Voice Project. We are celebrating our 20th anniversary year this year. But
Congratulations.
it is a project that I have been working on for the past 26 years.
Wow.
So very proud and happy to be able to get the word out because there are so many people with Parkinson's who need help. And you're helping us. So thank you so much. And I'm very grateful to David and Elizabeth Lyons who serve on our board.
Awesome.
My name is David Lyons, and I have Parkinson's disease. I was diagnosed in 2008, and I found the Parkinson Voice Project in 2012, and have involved ever since then. It's a key part of my life, of my daily activities, and it's important for me to be able to speak clearly and with meaning. So Parkinson Voice Project has helped me to do that through their Speak Out program. And it is a delight for me to have been on board for about a year and a half now, supporting Samantha, because she's done such a great work, and her people do a wonderful job at training SLPs and giving SLPs the proper tools to help us with our speech and our swallowing.
And Elizabeth.
I am David's wife and a care partner with him in this journey. And one of the things that being a part of Parkinson Voice Project is the ability for education for me. I can't possibly be in David's body, but the more I know about Parkinson, the better I can partner with him to help him have the best care and best days that he has. And that is majority of the knowledge that I have, the education I have now actually came from Parkinson's Voice Project, not necessarily the doctors. The doctors do their job and they do an incredible job. But if you broaden the scope out to all things Parkinson's, it's been Parkinson's Voice Project. And I love that I can understand what David is going through better because of it.
That's incredible. And I do think that's important. I think in a lot of things that we deal with medically, that there is so much more. It's such a broader thing than what doctors have the ability and time to help us with. So we need important organizations like this. Samantha, let's talk about the core philosophy behind the Speak Out therapy and how intent helps participants regain voice, retain voice, and that swallowing function as well.
Parkinson Voice Project developed the Speak Out therapy program in 2010. It's based on the teachings of a world-renowned speech-language pathologist, Daniel R. Boone, who in the late 1950s, he first recognized when people with Parkinson's are deliberate and when they focus and they use intent when they speak. Their speech becomes louder, clearer, more articulate, more expressive, more colorful. And so we like to say that Dr. Boone recognized this in the 1950s, but Parkinson Voice Project brought it to life. Our Speak Out Therapy program, the premise is to learn how to speak and swallow and live with intent. And where that really comes from is that humans have two motor systems. We have our automatic motor system, which controls everything that we do without conscious effort. Yeah, I'll give
Okay.
you some examples, but we also have our intentional motor system. So our automatic motor system, we do things automatically more than we might think. For example, swinging our arms when we walk. Sometimes that can be a first symptom of Parkinson's. Somebody notices, hey, I noticed that when you walk, you don't swing your left arm. Well, that's an automatic movement. But what we don't realize is that there are so many automatic movements. Walking, getting out of a chair, putting on our seatbelt, talking, swallowing. All of these are automatic movements. They are movements that we typically do without really thinking about them. But automatic movements are highly dependent on a neurotransmitter called dopamine. By the time someone with Parkinson's has any symptoms, by the time the tremor shows up, a person has already lost 60 to 80% of their dopamine producing cells.
Wow.
So, since automatic movements, anything that we would normally do without conscious effort, since it's highly dependent on dopamine, that's the main problem with Parkinson's. People with Parkinson's now have to think about everything that they're doing, including taking bigger steps when they're walking. We like to say, how would you walk if you were the boss? Walk down that hallway like you're the boss. And what happens, people with Parkinson's shift from the automatic motor system to the intentional motor system. The intentional motor system is not as dependent on dopamine, and that's why it works. When people with Parkinson's start speaking with intent, when they try to be deliberate and focused, like if they're in a job interview, then their speech is louder, clearer, more articulate, more expressive. All the things that Dr. Boone first noticed in the 1950s. And what makes intent so neat is that humans, all of us have used intent all of our lives. All of us. I just gave an example of a job interview. So
Yeah.
people can relate to that. When you walk into a job interview, you're not talking the same way as when you first wake up in the morning and you're talking to your spouse. That would be automatic. But in a job interview, you're making a conscious effort to make good eye contact, to speak clearly, to be confident. And that's what intent is all about, but that's why it works, because the intentional motor system is not as dependent on dopamine. However, you do need to activate it. It's like a light switch. It's available to you at any time, but it will not work for somebody with Parkinson's or any of us unless we flip the switch and we turn it on. And unfortunately, you can't just flip the switch in the morning and then it just stays on all day. You consciously have to think about it the whole time, walking with intent and swallowing with intent. But that's the premise of the Speak Out Therapy program. And it absolutely works because the intentional motor system still works in Parkinson's.
The science behind that is intriguing. And you don't, like you said, you don't think about those things. When I was a kid, we used to call my mom's professional voice her office voice. And I immediately thought of that when you were saying those things, but she'd get on the phone with someone and be like, oh, she's using her office voice.
Yeah. Definitely. And so we can do that. We have people that we have treated who are teachers. So it'll be use your teacher voice. People who are generals in the Air Force, use your general voice. And that's the thing. Everybody with Parkinson's is different. Sometimes Parkinson's is referred to as the snowflake disease, or, everybody is different. And that's why it's important that people with Parkinson's are working with a speech language pathologist who has received specialized training, because it is very different. Every person with Parkinson's is different. And the intentional cue that we would use that will sound that will make the most sense to each person is different. So
Yeah.
it can be the teacher voice, the general voice, say it with intent, speak out more, so we need to identify what cue is going to make the most sense and have the best results.
So, I notice we're lucky. You guys are based here in Texas, so we have you locally. But I did notice that you've expanded and that you guys also do some remote delivery of your therapy. How did that come about, and how is that working out?
Do you want me to answer that? Or
Whoever wants to answer that.
well, the pandemic changed everything.
Isn't
I
that the
can't
truth?
believe it. Yeah, during the pandemic, we started treating online. And although before the pandemic, our clinical team probably was ready to provide online therapy, I don't think the patients and the families were ready.
Mm.
And now everybody is, because the pandemic lasted so long and people had to have doctor's appointments and they got together with their book clubs and they got together with their family members. Now it's no problem when you say, we can treat you through Zoom. Oh, no problem. I can do that. And so now, and it's wonderful. I can't believe I'm even saying that. If you had asked me 6 years ago, if I would have said, which one is better, in person or online? And I would have said in person, but I disagree with that. I believe that online therapy is much better for several reasons. Number one, transportation and the stress on the care partner, having to get up, get dressed, rush out the door and go to your therapy, drive, in the Lyons case, they would drive an hour for therapy and then, have their session and drive back. And now they hop on a Zoom call for 30 minutes and they have their therapy session. Another fantastic benefit, it's just incredible, is that the families, adult children, are participating in the therapy sessions now. And it doesn't matter if they live in the same city, the same state, even the same country. They can hop in and participate. They can also practice with their mom or their dad, hop on Zoom calls, practice in the evening. We have people reading stories to their grandchildren with
Aw.
intent, and that's their homework. And that couldn't happen before. Before, even if an adult child lived in town, they might have to take off work a couple hours to come to the clinic and watch. And then what I would be doing is I would be sending emails and, okay, well, go to our website and click on this link. And now during the therapy session, I can share my screen, show people where to access a video that will help them or the education that that Elizabeth mentioned. And it's phenomenal. Before, there could be somebody with Parkinson's who lived 3 blocks from our clinic, but because they didn't drive, they couldn't receive therapy.
Mm.
Now we can treat people with Parkinson's all over Texas. The one downside is that speech pathologists are licensed per state. So
Okay.
what we're doing is our clinic in Richardson, Texas can treat anybody in the state of Texas. And then we are now replicating our program throughout the U.S. and abroad. We have a campaign called the Campaign to Reach America, where we are finding one clinic in every state across the U.S. that will do what we do. Don't charge for the therapy services. We use a pay it forward system instead of billing, insurance, or charging, and then provide online therapy. And right now we have 29 speak out therapy and research centers. So 29 states where anybody with Parkinson's has access to our program. And we'll continue to expand that and train more speech pathologists.
That's great. So, David, did you start out with in-person therapy and switch to remote therapy?
Yes, I started in person, and we lived actually in the city of Dallas, so it was might have been a 30-minute drive for us, but that wasn't that big of a deal. I was driving for a while and then decided I wasn't going to drive anymore, so my mother drove me, which is kind of crazy. She was still driving at the time, which was great. Elizabeth was working some, but it was in person. There's a great camaraderie that gets built up between us and our FLPs, but among the patients. And when the pandemic came in, as bad as it was and as horrible as it was, it has some great benefits, as Samantha was talking about. And the ability to do what they do online now has really resulted in great growth, because I can go anywhere in the state, and I'm not shy about telling people to go ahead and pass me because I'm slow. I have Parkinson's disease, and I mean, I'm not proud of it, but I'm not afraid of it anymore. And
Amen.
invariably, I come across a person that knows somebody close to them or a friend that has Parkinson's disease, and they don't understand it. Because when my medication is on, I don't think you would know that there was a problem with me. But when it's off, I've had the difficulty walking, and my speech is impacted in some of my executive function. I don't have a tremor. Never have. So
Mhm.
I don't shake anywhere. But I can tell them that, and that gives me an opportunity to share. But it doesn't matter whether their family member lives in Texas or in the United States, most of it, or if they're local, whatever. I can give them the information, and they can get in contact with Parkinson Voice Project, go through the speak out therapy, and it's open to anybody that can get to has a TV or excuse me, a computer or whatever.
Right.
So it makes it great to be able to advocate. I'll tell you one story if I can make it through it.
Yeah, please.
We were in New York City about 4 or 5 years. Well, this was right before the pandemic, I guess. And a gentleman walked in front of me in a old shop where you buy souvenirs, and his wife was behind him, and I tapped on the shoulder and said, "Does your husband have Parkinson's disease?" And she teared up and she said, "Yes, he does." And I said, "Well, he needs to hear about Parkinson Voice Project." But at the time, there was no online. And so I just had to tell him to get online, at least go to the website and get some
Yeah.
information. But now I'm going with that same lady and say, here's the online stuff. And you don't have to be anywhere near Dallas to do this, as long as you have access to a computer or your phone or an iPad or whatever. So now I can advocate in Florida. I can advocate in Dallas. I can advocate in California. And, somebody's going to have access somewhere close. And so it's just a wonderful, I mean, that's one of the benefits of the pandemic. And Samantha and her team were just very, very quick to jump on that, and drew a lot of us back in that had kind of fallen away because of distance or whatever. And we were out a couple of years, and because we moved out almost an hour away from the place, the clinic, and I had no way to get there anymore. And so
Yeah.
now Elizabeth is retired, so we go in one day a week for singing practice, and the rest of the time, the other meetings I have online. So it's perfect, and the therapy is adaptable to the online just as easy as it was as in person.
I love the ability to reach more folks. And yes, the pandemic did change a lot of things for not so good, but that is one thing that did come about that was wonderful is this ability to connect online and not, in person if you can't be in person. So
Well,
thank you.
one of the beauties of this also is that in the olden days, we used to meet in speak out groups. Used to call them loud crowd, but now speak out groups. And that's where you can really bond with some people that could
Mhm.
more understand what you're going through. Well, that kind of went away, but then the pandemic brought that back, because I have a meeting. Actually, it's scheduled for 3 o'clock today, but I'll have to miss it today probably. But there's about 10 of us that meet with one of the SLPs, speech language pathologists, and we go through a little short exercise, and then we can have a conversation. There's a question
Yeah.
that's put on the table or a topic or whatever. And so, and it's the same group every week for 30 minutes. And so we're able to bond that same way because we can see each other, hear each other, and encourage each other there as well. So that's one of the key components of the speak out therapy protocol. Is once you trained and learn how to speak with intent, it has to be maintained, because Parkinson's is not going away from me. So I'm going to have these people around me for the rest of my life in order to maintain my speech and swallowing. Obviously it's critical for being able to communicate with my granddaughters who live right down the street
Yeah.
from me, and also not to choke on food or when I'm
Yeah.
drinking. Very, very important. Very important to have that ability to speak and swallow.
Well, so
Kristy, oh,
yeah.
I was going to say at Parkinson Voice Project, we like to say we're in it with you for the long haul. And so a big part of Parkinson Voice Project's program is not only to regain the ability to speak and to swallow, but to retain it. So regain and retain. So maintenance is a huge part of the program. So after somebody has an evaluation and they finish one-on-one speech therapy, then they transition to the weekly Speak Out therapy group, like David mentioned. And every 6 months, they have a reevaluation with their certified Speak Out provider. So once somebody is in the program, they're in it for life.
Okay.
I don't know. Should we tell people that right away? I don't know. But it sounds a little bit overwhelming. But,
I think it sounds like hopeful, Samantha. I think
good.
it, but
I'm
that
glad.
to someone who might be experiencing that, they're like, I've got somebody by my side who's going to
Yes.
be here with me for the long run. I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think you'll
Thank you.
find too, when you were talking about the remote, being able to have this remotely, um, it would have been fine if Samantha had created this incredible program and she trained all these people, but that wasn't good enough. She wanted it to be more than that. And in order to do that, she had to reach families. One of the things, probably with almost any progressive disease, but definitely Parkinson's, um, you heard her mention that everything in life has to be done with intent. And part of Parkinson's also is it's apathy. I don't feel like doing it. I'm tired. This is hard. And they need partners. They need their family. You need a team to be encouraging you to continue with the exercises. And there's so much more. It's almost like we talk about Parkinson's. If someone were to describe it, if you were just to stop somebody on the street, they would say Parkinson's is that shaking. Everybody shakes. That's the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more to it than that. Not only the apathy, but you heard David mention the executive function, that they begin to lose that. So by being remote and having the education for families invites this environment of support for each patient, and that it's not just the adults. This goes down to the grandkids too. They know enough now that the oldest one just finished a paper on Parkinson's Voice Project and turned it into her high school. She's his medical classes she's taking, and they had SOPs there. So she told them all about Parkinson's Voice Project. The 5-year-old, the best she understands is that Papa needs a path. And when she's here at the house and her toys are everywhere, she's now trained. And if I say, what does Papa need? Oh, Papa needs a path. And she goes and starts pushing all those toys out of the way. So this whole idea that they're treating Parkinson's patients is it's the biggest piece of it. But without what I've learned from them and without how we have pulled in this whole family and the availability to do that online as well, has just opened up the door for so much more. It's absolutely incredible.
That's great. You mentioned on something about the training of the therapist. So let's talk about that for a second, because you also mentioned something about it, Samantha, in your initial answer. Is it specialized training? Is it different than what they receive elsewhere? How does that training work? How do you find the therapists and get them into your system to deliver that consistent therapy?
So, in order to become a certified Speak Out provider, someone has to be a licensed speech language pathologist. So
Okay.
that's somebody who has earned their master's degree in speech language pathology and holds a license in their state. The training that we do treating Parkinson's is very different than treating other neurological disorders. Very different from treating somebody who had a stroke or somebody with Lou Gehrig's disease, somebody with a traumatic head injury. And unfortunately, in graduate school, although we're changing this, when I was in graduate school, I didn't learn anything about Parkinson's. I didn't see any, I saw one person with Parkinson's when I was doing my externship at the Dallas VA hospital. But so we're changing this. So we have created a course for speech language pathologists to learn about Parkinson's, to understand the automatic and intentional motor systems, to understand how to treat them and how to get the results that we're getting at Parkinson Voice Project. We have also created a training program for speech pathology graduate students. And we are providing that training at no cost. Last year, we trained over 4,300 graduate students across the U.S. and abroad. And it is a 10-hour course to teach the students about Parkinson's and how to conduct speak out therapy. The graduate students do not become certified speak out providers. Once they graduate, if they want to become a provider, then they can. But at least while they're in school and engaging in their internships or externships, they have the knowledge to provide speak out therapy to their patients and also to learn about Parkinson's. In graduate school, students often enter graduate school not knowing whether they want to work with children or they want to work with adults. So I would say the graduate, besides helping people with Parkinson's, I would say the graduate student training is probably what I'm most proud of, because we are helping future speech language pathologists. These students are going to graduate and be working in the hospitals and rehab clinics and home health therapy. And so I'm so proud that at least if they don't remember anything else, if they decide to work with children or go work with people who have had strokes, at least they would know a little bit about Parkinson's and say, listen, you need to go check out Parkinson Voice Project.
Yeah. You should be proud of that. That's amazing. You are impacting the industry in a big way.
I just have to pause for a moment and say I'm blown away by what this team is doing. They've completely changed how the speech pathology world views Parkinson's and what's possible for patients. If you or someone you love has Parkinson's, please don't wait. The earlier you begin this therapy, the better your outcomes can be. Visit ParkinsonVoiceProject.org to learn more, and you're in a position to support their mission. Every donation truly helps another person find their voice again. Now let's get back to this inspiring conversation.
So, are there a couple of, and it may be hard to pick, but are there a couple of success stories that just stick out in your mind besides David?
There's lots of them. The one thing I love is that people with Parkinson's are retaining their skills. So if anyone goes to our website, there is a testimonials page where you can see videos of people before and after, and then 10 years later or 15 years later. So I encourage your viewers to watch that. But we receive letters every week. In fact, I just received one.
Oh, okay.
And I love this. I could just, if I could read part of it to you,
I
I
would
think
love
it
that.
is so cute. So it's somebody that went through speak out therapy in California. Okay. So they're saying to all who provide help to those of us with Parkinson's. And he says, he talks about the therapy and how fun it was to go through it. But he said, in just a few sessions, my certified speak out provider literally saved my wife and me from getting run over. A car was backing up from a parking space when we were at the grocery store. I was able to yell loud enough that the person in the car with the windows rolled up heard me. People for a block or more also stopped and looked to see what the problem was. Prior to the Speak Out Therapy program, yelling was out of the question. And I mean, we think about speech therapy as becoming a better communicator and all of that, but we don't think about the life-saving or the emergency situations. I can recall that there was a woman who lived in an assisted living facility. She lived by herself. She had a caregiver that would come every day for a few hours to help her. So it was about 3:00 when the caregiver left. The woman fell and broke her hip. Nobody was there. Her caregiver was not coming back for 24 hours almost. And she was able to call out so that in the hallway, somebody heard her and was able to get her some help. We don't think about these things.
Right.
It's about so much more than just being able to communicate. We want people to be able to communicate with their family and their friends, and it's so important. We want them, for young onset or those who are still working, we want them to be able to keep their jobs. We want them to continue their volunteer activities. But there's some real life-saving issues, like the man who almost got run over in the grocery store parking lot. And then in terms of swallowing, a lot of people don't realize that the same muscles we use for talking are the ones we use for swallowing. And if you think about it, we have one mouth, one tongue, one set of lips. These are the muscles that we use to articulate with, but they're also the muscles we use to chew our food, to to manage our saliva, to swallow. And so it becomes so much more than just being understood. It can
Yeah.
save life, like not getting hit by a car,
Yeah.
but also save your life in terms of not choking. One other quick story is a gentleman who describes that before he went through speak out therapy, he was at home alone. His wife was out of town. He was eating a tuna fish sandwich, and all of a sudden it just got stuck. And he thought, oh my gosh, he couldn't breathe. He said
Yeah.
it was frightening. He's like, oh my gosh. Of course, as this is going on, what he's thinking is, oh my God, I'm going to die choking on a tuna fish sandwich. This is what everybody's going to talk about, And, but anyway, it's just so frightening. And it's because the muscles are moving slower. Slowness of movement is a symptom of Parkinson's. So you can think like it takes me longer to get dressed or longer to walk, but the food going down was slower. And now he's been in the program over 10 years, isn't having any trouble with his swallowing, knows how to eat with intent, swallow, chew and swallow with intent. So, sometimes I think about this and I think, okay, where would that same person be today if he had ever heard about Parkinson Voice Project? That's what he was noticing at that time. How much would it have progressed 10 years later? And what would he be
Right.
like? And it just
Samantha,
makes me proud to be helping people.
Samantha, tell
Well,
her the
So,
story. This speaks to how important each of these patients believe in the program. You can do things just because you're not supposed to, but when they flip that coin and they really believe in it, tell them, I don't remember who it was, in the hospital when you went to visit, and what did you hear?
Which one? I'm trying to think of which story
I
you're
don't remember
thinking
who
of.
it was, but they'd been in the hospital and you went to visit them. And as you were coming down the hall, they were doing their exercises.
Oh, always
Like
that
every day in the
happens. Yeah.
hospital doing their
Yeah.
exercises. Now, there
You
aren't
hear
very many
people.
people, if you didn't believe in it, you wouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, down the hallway you can hear, May, me, my. But that's the neat thing too with online therapy. Even though somebody might be, let's say they went into the hospital, now they're going to go into skilled nursing or so. If they have an iPad, they can still do the therapy and still do the exercises. And one thing I do want you to know is that during the pandemic, we also started hosting online speak out home practice sessions 5 days a week. So we host 20-minute practice sessions on our website, Facebook, and YouTube, and anyone from anywhere in the world can practice with us for 20 minutes a day. We also record the sessions because we conduct them at 10:30 a.m. U.S. Central Time. And in Australia, that might be in the middle of the night. And so we record them. But daily home practice is essential for people with Parkinson's. They need to exercise their bodies every day. They need to exercise their speech and swallowing muscles. And so we provide these sessions at no charge. Again, we haven't charged for our therapy services since 2008. Our program is funded mostly through donations. Some therapists do pay to become a certified speak out provider, but all of our patient services are provided at no cost.
That's incredible.
We have over 5,000 people practicing with us every day from all
That's
over the
great.
world.
That's great. So
that's great,
let me
but there
ask
should
you,
be a
is there
million.
some,
So that's
huh?
great because 5,000, but there should be a million or more.
There
Right.
should be.
There's
But
the
so
word
maybe
out.
many.
after this interview, you'll probably be up to.
Wonderful.
Before we leave,
So let me ask
before,
you if there's some future innovation or some research directive that's happening that you're excited about. Is there something innovative coming or that you guys are discovering?
All of the speak out therapy and research centers that we are establishing in university clinics across the United States, they have three parts to them. They treat people with Parkinson's, they train graduate students, and they're conducting research. There are over 20 studies right now going on with speak out therapy. And I'm really excited to see the results. We've had a couple, we started this project in 2021. So the centers have 3 to 5 years to conduct their study and hopefully get them published. And so I'm really looking forward to the future of this. So there's all different studies. One university is putting probes on the tongue where they can tell. They're taking data, collecting data before someone goes through speak out therapy, and then again afterward. Parkinson's is characterized by smaller movements. We think of smaller handwriting or smaller steps, but the tongue is moving in a smaller way, which is how it impacts swallowing. So they're able to see what the difference is going to be. All different studies on quality of life, the impact on care partners. And we like to use the word care partner, not caregiver. Elizabeth is a care partner because they're in it together. So I look forward. We do have a page about research on our website. And so as the studies get published, one of them, for example, the first one from the centers to be published was they took videos of patients reading a passage before treatment and then after the 1 month of speak out therapy, the first part of the program. And then what they did was they turned down the volume and they had people watch the videos, and they judged the person's leadership skills just based on what they saw. Is very telling that after going through speak out therapy, people were moving their mouth more. They had better facial expression. They appeared to be more confident, more competent. Isn't that interesting that you can judge? I mean, so much of what we do is based on our body language. And I thought that was a fascinating study. And that's why I like having all the different speak out therapy and research centers, because they can all choose. We can't have all the ideas, right? I like to see what they come up with. And that's a really neat study.
It's exciting.
That one is interesting to me because just recently we showed some videos, before and after videos, and mine was one of them. And I cry every time I see it because I sat there and barely moved my mouth, and my head was still, I had no expression, and you could hear me, and it just made me cry. But the second one, after the program, I was more animated, like I am now, and I smile when I talk, and I speak louder and with more intent, obviously. So even if that's all they did research-wise, just show the before and after, everybody would be convinced that it works, because I've seen so many of those, and the engagement that's allowed because of the ability to speak and show some expression just makes a whole lot of difference in your confidence levels, as Samantha was saying. And I can't tell you how valuable that is to see the before and after.
You're a walking, talking billboard, David.
I try my hardest to be one.
Well, and there's this vicious cycle, if you say something and people don't hear you, and then you feel kind of brings you down, right? And the next thing you know, you don't want to go out, you don't want to get with people. And then that also impacts the care partner. And it's just this terrible cycle that happens, but it can go the other way. Yeah. You say something, they heard you. They respond, they go, you are engaged, you have hope now. So hopefully what's happening is people are improving their communication. They're feeling more confident with their swallowing. And now they feel like, you know what, if I could do this, I bet I could do that. Let me continue. And it is just a cycle. And that reminds me of it might have been like the third or fourth patient I ever treated. I remember this was not at Parkinson Voice. This was before Parkinson Voice Project existed. But the man got off the elevator, okay, and he was coming to see me. It was only his second day of therapy. And he goes, I just said hi to a woman in the elevator, and she said hi back. It was just so exciting. We don't think about it, but how would that make the person feel? They say hi, they become totally, they're totally ignored, and it just brings you down. It's just a reminder you have Parkinson's, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what are the biggest barriers that you face today, and how can the community help you? And those may be two separate questions.
Um, Well, I'll tell you what, a couple of things. We need people to get the word out, engage with us on social media, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X, LinkedIn. So getting the word out is something that I think everybody can do. Share the post. We have a new digital marketing team, and I love the education that they are providing. They have some new features like Ask the Expert, and they have terms. A new one I like is how to say certain words that are related to Parkinson's and what these words mean, like definitions of certain things. I think that's really neat. So we can certainly help with that. And of course, donations. I'll be very honest,
Yeah.
we know exactly how to help people with Parkinson's. We absolutely do. If we had the money, we could help so many more people. But things cost money. For example, just the home practice sessions that we're doing. We have so many people practicing. The other day, the website was kind of slow. Like, what's going on here? It's because so many people are logged in and
Mm,
practicing that we had to go in and increase the capacity of the server. Well, all of that, the more you get the word out, the more practicing, the more that. So we, of course, appreciate donations, but getting the word out and then thinking about it, there are, for example, my children work for two companies that match donations. I don't know if everybody thinks about that. They make a donation to their favorite charity. It's not just about Parkinson Voice, but have they checked with their workplace to see if they match donations? Have they considered a Facebook fundraiser for their favorite charity?
mm-hmm.
Another interesting statistic is that there was a research study about planned giving, and out of 2,000 people that met with their attorney to prepare their will and their estate plans, none of them were asked by the attorney, would you like to include your favorite charity?
Mm,
But when people were just asked, have you thought about including your favorite charity in your will? The percent of people that included a planned gift to their favorite charity went from 5% to 10.4%. So again, I'm not saying this just for Parkinson Voice, for all nonprofits. Think about these things because there are lots of ways to help, and the charities, they need the money. They can't
right.
function. You can't get good staff, and I'm proud that a lot of our staff has been here for a long time, more than 7 years or so. Um, but we pay our staff, and all the systems, all the technology and everything. For example, we pay $40,000 a year to have the learning management system. I talked about training 4,000 students,
Yeah.
and then all the speech pathologists we're training. Well, the system that we use, it costs $40,000. So charities, all charities, I'm just your favorite charities,
Right.
your church, you have expenses, and they need your help. They really do.
Yeah.
They need donations, but they also need you to think about a planned gift and how you can help. In our case, it would be future patients and families. So I'll give a plug for all the charities.
I love it. You heard it here. So I always like to ask if there's one thing that we didn't cover that you want people to know about Parkinson Voice Project, what would that be? And I'll give you each a chance to answer this if you have something that you want to add.
Well, I think
Whoever. Okay.
from my standpoint, um, the thing I'd like for everybody to know about Speak Out program is that it works, uh, that it's easy, the people are committed to us as Parkinson patients, and as Samantha said, they're in it for the long haul, and of course we are as well. But just to be able to share, to get the idea that there is hope. There is hope for people with Parkinson's, and for their families to understand the difficulties, because living with intent is a 24-hour a day job. I mean, it's not just a hobby; it is a
Right.
lifetime job, and it's hard to manage. Because there's so much to it, just on the speaking part, walking and thinking, and there's just so much that it impacts in our lives. Dismiss any other chronic disease, but this one's a challenging one. It's one of the worst ones to have, as far as I'm concerned, because I have it. But for people to understand that there is some hope, um, because the mantra of intent is not just for speaking with intent, but it's living with intent and loving with intent and walking with intent. And it's got to be top of mind all the time. And it's just not a matter of a one-time fix or a refresher every now and then. It is a constant thing on my mind, which is very tiring. And after a
I,
while, you just
yeah.
you don't want to try anymore. But then somebody comes and says, "You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing," and we get back on
Yeah.
I don't smack
whether the
him.
Yeah.
man or my wife or
He
my
wasn't
children.
talking about you.
I would like for everybody that has Parkinson's in the world and their families to understand that there is hope and it is not going to go away. There's two things you can do about it really is exercise and work on your voice, go through speech therapy, that kind of speech therapy that makes a difference. Parkinson Voice Project, the Speak Out program makes the difference.
Thank you, David. That was great. Anything else to add, Elizabeth or Samantha?
I would kind of piggyback off of that because David does a great job of, he can express his feelings very succinctly and he does communicate them very well too. And I would say for David, when I think about Parkinson patients, we're seeing more and more early onset people. And at the same time, we have a lot of people that will say, "Oh, my dad was just diagnosed. How old is he?" Well, he's 80 something. And those two ends to me, I really, with my whole heart, would want them to understand that there is the hope. We need research, and people will say, well, research is for people down the road and we want to stop Parkinson's from happening, But right now, there's, Samantha, how many patients or how many people are diagnosed each year with Parkinson's? Do you know?
Well, we have over 10 million worldwide, and it
Okay.
is expected to double by the year 2040, and 90% will struggle with speech and swallowing
So
if
when you
we
think
don't
of
reach them.
when you think about that, we absolutely have to have research. But in the meantime, there are this many people trying to live with it. And what Parkinson Voice Project does, not only does it give hope, it changes the quality of your life. And so people on the young end, they think, oh, I'm still young. I don't need this. And I don't want to talk about it. And then the dads that are in the moms and dads that are 80 years plus, they think they're too old, that this won't change anything. And they need to understand there's one thing out there that can change the quality of your life. And it's Parkinson Voice Project. Absolutely. I just don't want anybody to not know about it and know that they can take that part of their life. And especially when you partner with a family understands it too. And just think that they're sitting there with no hope is the saddest thing I can imagine.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
will to get up and just do life. This does it. This gives you that go ahead. I want to get up. I'm going to do this because they see it and it works. I don't know what else to say. It works.
I think that's enough. I think that's great. It's the forward momentum. I think you think about anything that you do in life, any new skill that you learn or any challenge that you're trying to overcome, like losing weight or whatever. It's that first little bit of momentum, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, look at this, and I can see that that's what Parkinson Voice Project is for so many.
That's a good way to describe it. And I would like people to know that people with Parkinson's have a lot more control than they might think that they do. And so I encourage everyone to go visit parkinsonvoiceproject.org. We have a wonderful video on our website called What is Parkinson's? It's just about 25 minutes long, but it will provide hope to people because that's what they need. They need to know that just because Parkinson's is labeled as a progressive, degenerative, incurable disease, that's all people hear. You tell somebody that and they don't hear anything else, anything you said after that. I want people with Parkinson's to know that they have more control over their speech, their swallowing, their movements, their life than they might think. And it is real. There is hope. There's a lot you can do. Really, if you think about everything you can't control with Parkinson's, you can't control the loss of dopamine. But in terms of how much you exercise and the therapies that you enroll in and the way you manage your medications and the way you set up your home so it's nice and safe and organized and how you reduce your stress, all of those things. Honestly, living with Parkinson's, everything that people with Parkinson's need to do, all of us should be doing it. All of us should be eating right, exercising, reducing our stress, getting rid of the clutter in our home to, relax our minds. It's just that with Parkinson's, you don't really have a choice. If you don't do it, Parkinson's can get very ugly. But if you can, like you said, start with one little thing to help you, and speak out therapy could be that little thing because it will work. It works on everybody. It doesn't matter if you're really severe when you hear about it, you can still make improvements. It won't be perfect at that point, if you've been struggling for a long time, but you can make improvements and let that be the thing that catapults, the rest of it. And so I hope people will watch the What is Parkinson's video. It's right on the homepage of our website.
Okay, great. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your work. I'm so impressed with what it is that you guys do and appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to do this.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you. Appreciate it.
What an incredible reminder that hope isn't theoretical. It's something that we can create when people come together with heart and purpose. The work of Parkinson Voice Project shows that a diagnosis doesn't define your future, and that even as Parkinson's progresses, your voice can remain strong. That's powerful. In our next episode, we're switching gears a bit, but staying focused on empowerment, exploring how a home equity conversion mortgage line of credit can help make retirement more stable, less stressful, and more flexible. We'll talk about using home equity strategically so you can live the retirement you want, not the one you're forced into.